very warm welcome to a third episode of We4 Neighborhood Talk. We are going to talk this time about working together and working across the borders.
Your home is already a cross-border home, as we are not only partners, business in the gallery, but we are partners also in the real life. We actually know each other from Berlin, so the surrounding and the context where we got to know each other was already an international context. It was during university years. And I think for me, maybe that was also the start where I really started to work in an international surrounding. There were 40 students. It was an interdisciplinary research group, which was called together by a German foundation. And there Patrick was the Swiss guy and I was the Hungarian. So that was the point actually where we got to know each other. And that was also a very intense cooperation in a small group with all the nice and also all the dynamic parts of cooperating throughout borders. First I show maybe the back of this. It is a paper. It is a copy of an artwork actually, and the artwork looks like that. So how we were already saying, we are from a gallery and we are dealing with contemporary art, and this piece of work is from Géza Pernetsky. We are having it now in a copy as the original is quite a precious one. We were not taking it with us, and this work is from '84. And we took it not only because it is like making a nice wink to you, but this is a work which was distributed in the so-called Mail Art Network, which is actually nowadays seen as a kind of a proto-internet in the art. And there was a famous exhibition in the MoMA last year, the so-called analog networks, where Géza Pernetsky, who is the artist who did that piece, was also exhibited. And we found that this is a nice start, maybe, to not only to wink to you, but also to show that in the art, these networks are already there. They were all the time there, and they were powerful methods to reach out to the isolation which we were having in the Iron Curtain, which other countries were having, maybe also in dictatorship and whatsoever.
Well, I would like to add that the analog network, so that this kind were people that were interconnecting each other via mail, and but also, of course, from time to time, if it was possible, also met in congresses. And so there were also physical meetings where they met each other. And as Boki told, it is like kind of a pre-internet. It was called also in this exhibition by this curator. And I guess in times where we have internet and we have these virtual networks and virtual also already collaborations, yeah, so it goes into like work together virtually. I think the analog aspect, like the physical meetings, like we have it here, for example, right now, this is like crucial. And of course it can start virtually, but always somehow I think it's crucial to then meet people eye to eye and work together in a space, or like for us in exhibitions. So I guess that's a crucial thing.
My team, now we are 90 people, and we haven't met all together in real life, because we are working on 10 different countries, and but thanks Facebook, social media, new technologies, we can have the same mission to attract women to IT. We can communicate, we can change the world faster probably than 2 or 3 decades ago. So new technologies give us tools and help us to maintain this relationship. But of course, the nicest thing is to meet people in person.
You probably cannot work virtually.
It's something
being
different,
performative
yes,
art.
in theater, because technology they help us to connect and to find a good person for cooperation and check previous work, but we need to meet and touch each other and work together. So it's we cannot create nothing without the real meeting with real life.
And when you rehearse in one physical space. It's not like you can prepare something.
No, it's not possible. We prepare like it's fast before when we are discussed, so it can be via Skype or something, but when actually you want to create something, you have to be together and to share in real space.
But I remember, in the offline days when we were growing up, I think we all remember that. The first context, I don't know if it still exists, the institution of pen friendships. It does probably exist online in various forms, but I remember the excitement as a young kid learning first Russian at school. I had a pen friend, Kolya, I don't remember where. We exchanged a few letters. Of course, it took months to have a feedback, so the chat was very slow. Then I remember learning German. One day I was walking back home and a balloon landed right in front of me, a balloon with a message attached, and it arrived all the way from Bavaria.
Oh, wow. Wow.
It was a school project, so this German boy, whom I was in touch with, practicing my German then, sent it as part of his project and arrived, and took quite a few days as we measured then later. So it was exciting to wait for the reply, whereas it's instantaneous nowadays.
Maybe we can talk a little bit about let's call it the Central European business culture. You've seen what skills you're missing, and you acquired them for working with other people, for working outside of Poland, to go to Silicon Valley to negotiate all the amazing things you're negotiating.
We're missing some really important skills, and we don't develop them. We don't have focus in our schools on this, but it doesn't mean that you can say we cannot give up. Even if about 30, we have to work on this. There are skills, so it means that if you spend some time on this skill, you will be good at this. In my point, I was almost 20 and I didn't speak English. And I realized that without English, I cannot exist in a business world. So I started learning English really hard. I went to the United States. I was working there on work and travel programs. I worked for 10-12 hours a day, but I earn some money there, so I have for my living, and I learn languages. So it's first, and many people told me that at 20 it's too late to learn a language, but you can do it. It's a first. The second thing, which is really important, I think it's public speaking. We in our region, we are really bad at public speaking. We afraid to be on scene. We're afraid to share our ideas, and I think we have to learn this because without public speaking and without knowing how to gather people and how to show our ideas, how to pitch our ideas, we cannot change the world. We cannot do something. We cannot take people and do some projects. So I think we can work on this, and I went for some courses in public speaking a few years ago, and still I am on training. I think it's really important. So we have to work. We have to be aware what we are missing, what we don't have it, what we are poor at, and just work on this.
I agree.
Yes, I agree, because it's funny that recently we have been to Art Cologne visiting and just checking out the galleries, and there was an artwork, like a big banner actually, and it was saying an artist who doesn't speak English is not an artist. Like, that's like a very strong statement somehow, and of course it's there is some exaggeration behind it, but basically in our daily business, when we are confronted, or I am confronted, because in Hungary, yes, I'm not yet on the level of speaking the Hungarian fluently, and business Hungarian actually is rather hard for me to do so. So of course English is the language you communicate, and still there is problems to communicate in English. So also not from the side of the artist, that they, even though in their education there is the English course and they should actually, like on the paper, they can speak English, but there is still also, not because they cannot speak, it's also it goes a little bit in your presentation, also even like small communication with me, sometimes they just don't want to speak English, they think they are bad, or something like this. It's not only Hungary, it's also from other countries. I made the same experience. So I think, the statement in the art fair, it's for me, it's not true in the sense that he's not an artist, but to become an artist and to make develop your career, it's crucial to speak English. I can speak about the art scene and also the art scene in Hungary, and English within the little ecosystem of, let's say, even Budapest, is just not a common thing. There is not a lot of English journals, magazines. Some are rare. There are some translations in the back of the magazines, but it also struck me, like I found that a bit strange that this internationalization of the art scene did not take place somehow. So they are not used and they are not forced to speak English, and I'm forced. I have to speak English. No, I won't understand the people if I don't. So for them, it's just like, it's a matter of getting used to something, I guess, and then it's more normal just to accept it as a normal thing.
Maybe it's something about self-esteem. I think in our region we have quite low self-esteem, so we tend to be perfect at something, and then we can use it.
Yes.
So we are waiting for this moment that we are perfect in English, so then we can speak in English and we feel well with this.
Yes, exactly. Because it's something other. It's for example, you cannot do improvisation not in your language. Maybe in case when you are really good in the English or the other language, but improvisation, it comes from your inside, and it's really hard to improvise in the other languages. So it's like not easy.
Yeah, one has to improvise. I mean, and one should have the right to make mistakes. And the shyness, I think, I completely agree with you, comes with maybe a lack of self-esteem, but also it's part of the school system that is to a great extent still traditional, where making a mistake is a mistake, whereas one should really start the other way and just try. And once you try, it doesn't matter that you insert a few Hungarian or German words, where in fact many words in some languages you cannot translate and are, how would you translate a Stammtisch from German into English? It would be awkward, cumbersome. It's easier. You can insert a word from your own language and people will understand if you're expressive enough. So I think it's a lot of that. You have Hungarian English, you have Polish English, you have Slovak and Czech English, maybe similar, but you can tell. But you can understand. So there is such thing as Central European English with its specificities.
2 days ago, I was in my office and I thought, what can I bring to this meeting? And I saw in the corner these duckies, rubber duckies. We use it for programming. So if you learn how to code, how to program, after you learn, you explain what you already learned to the duck to check if you understand what you have learned already. And I think it's really good for communication and for public speaking and for improvisation and or for ideas. First, explain to the duck, and afterwards you can go and explain to other people, or just give a speech or give a improvisation to the audience. So I think this duck, it's going to be really useful with communication. Or you can talk in English, so you can practice your English. So
Thanks a lot.
Thanks.
And it's a piece of art, so
Yeah, for sure.
At least the design.
It also makes sound.
Thank you.
Thanks.
and of course you can take bath with them.
How you perceive the difference and how you maybe see the regional audience and worldwide audience.
So I think like in the art field, the art discourse is a global discourse. So This is very, very important to acknowledge and also to make it conscious for all the artists, as it is very easy to stay on a national level because there are institutions around. You can have exhibition every quarter whatsoever, so you can pretend that you are actually very busy artist in your home country. But what is very important to stress, and this is maybe even if it sounds harsh, this is a kind of a procrastination to stay on your national level and to play this kind of, let's say, small football. What you have there doesn't bring you further. And if you are only thinking in these frames, then you can really forget a career in the art. So I think it is important to put it actually one of your primary priorities, that you are on a global platform, you are on a global level.
We decided to cross border not between the countries, but between creators, because the sculptures, they are really deep in the topic, the actors too, and everybody just do stuff what they do, and they try do it the best, but there is not time to cooperate on the national level between your friend, which is their aim is other, not acting. So we decided to create some event when they can meet and they can together work on some project, and it was connected with Hungarian side. It was in 2009. When it looks not nice, the relationship between Hungarian and Slovak, but it was by political things, and we decided to do something with it because we feel that it's not true, that it's not reality. So we did the project on the old building on the border. It's the Banreve, it's the name. The cross border. So, and we invite there 19 artists from before. They support this project, and so we spend 10 days on the borders, exactly on the borders, and we create there, and we prepare event for public. And on the end of the project, people comes from Hungarian side, from Slovak side, from Poland, and then we publish it, and we say, no, this is reality. People meet on the border and don't care about your political things. It's time maybe for my present.
Yeah, sure. If you feel
because
it,
I read your mail not at home. I was in Bulgaria, so I asked my friend Zuzana from Bratislava, and she did something like this. So maybe it's not very useful for men, but maybe yes. So it's like nice pieces, and I like it because it's a cooperation. Yes, you put together two different things and you build something completely other. So this is SIM card, and this is from telephone, from mobile phone, and this is from computer. So
you have enter, you don't have
yes.
backspace.
Exit? No?
Exit. So, but it's only four. So, Julie, sure. I bring for you the next time. Enter, sure. Or you can choose, Camille.
Yeah, I would choose
enter. So, and it's telephone.
Thank you very much.
Communication.
Would you like to have the pink one?
So I really like it when you put together some different things and you create something new, and it's nice and it's useful.
I brought I will show it on the camera, maybe like that. I brought an old postcard from my birth town, Opava. I completely agree what was said about cooperation and the need to work together. I want to bring in a little bit of the past as one of the important reasons, of course, naturally. Just on the example of this town before Second World War was, in fact, actually before First World War as well, it was predominantly German. It wasn't from 2/3 German. It was, I think, 92% of all inhabitants were German speakers. including the Jews who then could not subscribe to Yiddish as their official language and therefore chose German. So there was a small group of Polish and a small, very small, relatively small group of Czechs. Currently it's a Czech town, and in Czechoslovakia it was like that. And so just as a reminder that for the very sake of cooperation, it's absolutely important to reflect the past, and the fact that in this turbulent region of Central Europe, I think it was this famous quote by Winston Churchill that the Balkans produce more history that they can consume. I think often misquoted and quoted. I think it applies to a great extent also to Central Europe, as the borders, of course, shifted so many times, and states were established and ceased to exist, and we were born in Czechoslovakia, which does not exist anymore, for example, and so on and so forth. So this is an old postcard still mailed with an Austro-Hungarian stamp written in Czech. I have no idea who sent it to whom. I found it in my family archive. But as a small reminder of the fact that there's one of the main reasons to cooperate is to create a good reference point for ourselves, to not to reflect on us as Czechs only residing in the Czech Republic or Slovaks, but to think of all the other peoples who had lived here in the region in the past, who do live still, and who do naturally subscribe to this region as their home, and not to forget the Roma, of course, and other minorities, which there are plenty. Fortunately, this is a very rich region in this respect. So there's a lot to learn from the past and use in this for the future.
So you would say that actually what we're all talking about, the collaboration, global collaboration means new media, it's actually given and very natural for the region, and we shouldn't over discuss it because it's what we do anyhow?
I don't think really it is natural. I think it's been destroyed so many times in the past, any natural ties. I mean, clearly regions or borders were drawn artificially, so to speak. Look at the Versailles Agreement, look at Trianon, which to this date is a political topic in Central Europe, for example. So borders were drawn regardless of who the people residing on both sides were, and in many cases, just as anywhere in the world, it happened that families were torn apart, villages were split into two towns. Like in the case of Češín and Český Těšín were split in half, and so for this very reason, I think it's absolutely important to cooperate with the neighbors, because there's a shared past, a shared history, and it should be acknowledged.
Yes, and I also would stress it that this shared past is not all the time the brightest. So, for example, we were having in the V4 regions these 40 years of forced cooperation, let's say it like this. We were, or the brothers and the friends of each other in the communism. And I think really lots of people felt that is really a force coming up on them. You were not allowed to travel to other countries and so on. So I think it is very important, even more for our generation, to somehow rediscover all these neighbors and also rediscover what it means actually to be Central European and to go also to the very roots of it, which is maybe lying in the culture. I think we have a very, very rich cultural traditions, and it is very good to come back to that and start from that, and also to really build up a very different attitude towards the neighbors than it was like in the communist pioneer times, where we could meet on that very formal level.
You don't have anybody in Czech Republic, Slovakia.
Why? How come?
Okay, so maybe I start with the beginning. So my organization, Geekers Carrots, what we do, we organize meetups and workshops for women in IT. Would like to attract more women to new technologies. And we started in Poland, in Warsaw, with one meetup, and we gathered people, real people, on meetup, and let them to share their knowledge, experience with each other, to inspire each other, to learn to use new technologies, and to start career in IT. And then we grow, and we are really a big organization in Poland. We are present in 15 major Polish cities. And then we started open our chapters abroad. Now we are in 10 countries, and we are present in Germany, in Luxembourg, France, Portugal, and United States, Japan, yes. And but we are not present in Czech Republic, in Slovakia, Hungary. And I was asking myself why. And I think first, most of these chapters of Geekers Carols were opened by Polish girls who are doing IT, who are interested in new technologies, and they travel around the world. And I think there are not so many people are going to Hungary, Slovakia, and Czech Republic to do career in IT. So I think it's first reason. The second reason is that we travel to some conferences, and there we meet people from Japan, from Berlin, from different countries, and they started Geekers Carols in the countries. But these conferences really not often are taking place in our region. So maybe it's the reason that we rather travel to learn something, to meet people who are doing startups, who are programming. We are towards to West, not to Central Europe. So maybe it's a message for us that we have to cooperate and set up conferences and in our region. For sure we have some, but are not so crucial like others. So I think, but maybe after this show, maybe people from Hungary, Czech Republic, and Slovakia would like to set up Geekers Carols in the country. So please contact me. You can find me in the internet. I'm really easy to reach. So yeah, we can do something here and just attract more women from this region. And our region is really well known for good education in technology, so I think it can be really great opportunity to cooperate.
As you said, like if you develop your business, it's naturally that IT maybe spreads rather to the West, to the US maybe even. Yes. But I guess in the visual arts and also I can imagine also the theater, it's not a coincidence where you make your connections, and also a big part is funding. Yeah, so it's also with whom you make a project is where you got the funds for. And so the construct of the V4 is a good thing because it connects the neighbors where there are other institutions, and I mentioned it also yesterday. For example, in Switzerland, where they are actually already in their policy about funding, they're already beyond their neighbors. Like it's a chapter they said, okay, everything looks fine, everything looks good, everything is developed. So let's head to more exotic countries and start to support there and start exchange and collaboration there. Where are the professionals actually, which are in Switzerland, dealing with that throughout residency programs, like day by day? They say, well, no, it's actually there is still not enough connections between Austria and Switzerland. There is not enough connections between Germany and Switzerland. We don't know what is going on in these countries too much. So I guess the construct of V4 is super important and also super interesting because it has kind of, okay, it's international, but it's also on the local stage. It really
maybe it's natural because we need something totally different. To be inspired or motivated. Maybe we are too similar to each other, so there are no such a big inspiration like we have from totally different countries with different approach and culture and so on. So maybe we don't, in my field, maybe we don't cooperate because we know each other well and the bigger inspiration and how different people find solution for the same problem are different and more inspiring. So maybe it's the reason why we are looking for some exotic countries.
Would you expand your business easier if there were government incentives that would enable you to easily spread out to Slovakia, Czech Republic, Hungary, for example?
This is a tricky question, and I will not answer because I don't have any grants, I don't have any support for government. We just do business, and all profit from our business are going for our social projects. Mm-hmm. So actually I don't know what will happen if they give you money, and I don't know if I will take this money.
If you would take it.
Yeah, exactly. Because if you have, if you are doing your business and you have your own money, you can deal with this money as you wish to do it. You don't have to ask for permission, or you don't have to check what was in your business plan, which were accepted by government or for some institution. And sometimes it doesn't make sense to plan to fulfill the plan. It's better to listen to the market and do what is needed right now on the market. So so this is a tricky question.
It's a good one. I think you would probably have something to tell about that.
I just would like to say that the cooperation with neighbors is the nature, and it's fine to start the international cooperation with your neighborhood, because you are they are other but same in the same time. So V4 project, it was for us the first international project. So and on this base we are learn, and then we grow up and start to cooperate with other countries. So it's I think that it's very useful to use this relationship between neighborhoods.
And it's also greater sustainability. So you can, even after the funding is done, after one project is done, you know each other and you can visit each other because the distance is not too far. So you
we are continue involved without funds.
Yes, exactly. So there was just an initial a kickstart, and now there are established connections. I guess that's super important. Whereas also, of course, we cannot to invite people from farther away, which you said it's more like the more exotic, or you can learn from them because they think different or they are different. That's true.
They have different approach.
Yes, that's also. I guess that's also very interesting. But as long as you don't know your neighbors too much, and I speak of this Swiss view, not because I hear it's of course a bit different because you have a shared past. And that as long as you don't know this too much, it should you should always develop that firsthand, I guess, and then after that also.
I think it depends on the branch. It depends what we are doing. Yeah. I think when it comes to culture and artistic fields, I think it's really good. We have really similar history, so the outcome can be really similar, and we can learn and inspire by each other. But when it comes to new technology or some science, I think it's really good first to look who is the best in a field and to learn from them, and we can cooperate. But I think we have to start with. I think we have to start with cooperating with those who are the best in the field.
We also experienced that in these 2 years we run the gallery, that actually at the moment there is one example. We do an art award, so it was an open call, and last year it was the first time. We have international jury, and the open call could attract plenty of applicants, like 600 people from 70 countries, so it was truly international. And a Japanese artist won. We could invite him. Everything was wonderful. It was a great experience, And now we will do this art award the second time. And we decided to focus now on the CEE region. So it's a kind of we narrow it down, the open call, and we would like it's still 17 or up to 20 countries, but still it's smaller. It's focusing on the region because we truly believe that the region, maybe it's a visual art in the only in the visual art context, that it has to strengthen its visibility. It has to be more visible on a global scene. And if you cooperate within the countries together, if you make exchange, if you invite artists in this sense, you can really make a stronger impact to a global visibility. So you can show what is going on here with a lot of things. Art award is just one tool to be more visible. If you can spread it afterwards on blogs and stuff, documentation. But I guess this is a bit another approach. Really
I think so different.
It's also different context,
yes,
of course,
exactly.
Totally. But there we saw, and this was some kind of development. Also in our mindset, we made a little bit that this strengthening of the region is truly crucial to be visible on a global scale.
I think the question is, what market is interesting for you? Where you want to be, and if you want to be on a global market, you should be in a global network. So it doesn't matter from where you are come from. It means who you know and in what kind of conferences you appear. And if you are decided to be on global market, if you are decided to be region market, it's different approach.
I think also that being on the global market is also needs some kind of branding. And if you are like trying to, establish your regional connections, that can also brand you in a way which is bigger than you. Of course, I think it is a commonplace that every branch and every industry has different logics and dynamics. So maybe it is completely different when you have one product or you have one kind of service, and it is not working maybe in another field. But I think we like act globally and internationally. But for us, I think also it brings a lot to start to make a kind of a circle around you, which also brands you. And what we see is on the global market, this is also much more visible, really. So in the US, they are usually not very interested in Hungary, but they are very much interested in Central Eastern Europe. So this is kind of a package which you can sell.
Actually, in Giger's Carrots, we create local communities. So we are in all these local cities, and we are focused on what's going on local, but it's at this local level, and afterwards we have this global level where girls are connected to each other when they are traveling and so on. So yes, actually we are started from local community and local awareness that something is going on.
I grew up in Czechoslovakia, and I read, growing up, I read Slovak books, which is not the case anymore. Czech kids don't read Slovak books or don't watch Slovak television any longer. But I still, to this date, am amazed that I learn, every week I learn a new Slovak word, which I had never had an idea that it existed. And so it's very refreshing to learn a bit more. I mean, I remember one Hungarian diplomat, I won't name him, a couple of years ago, told me this sort of heretic idea or opinion he had. And I think about it a lot these days, that the Czechs and Slovaks are very similar, but not as similar as we always wanted to, or were forced to believe, or even believed ourselves. That there's a lot of similarity between the Slovaks and the Hungarians, and in many ways the closeness is much. I mean, it's bigger than between Czechs and Slovaks themselves.
How is it to operate business-wise in Central Europe, you being from a very organized background?
I fight with this cliche a lot. But I'm just in some circles I'm the Swiss guy. But well, this is actually, first of all, a nice entry into, if you speak about business, to be the Swiss guy. That even if it's cliche, it opens up. So, like, people tend to trust maybe a little bit. I don't know why, but they tend to give trust.
Big mistake, right?
Big mistake, And this is something maybe I could say, but what I can feel sometimes is a certain, well, cannot be called mistrust. It's just like a distance maybe, until like where people think, okay, what does he want exactly? Who is this? So if you get to know each other, it's usually as anywhere else, and there are just like not so super great differences. It really depends on the person. So I have great experience. I also have a lot of projects in Switzerland where you can make exactly the same experiences, and I guess I move in a more international circle of people, especially in the art scene. So my direct collaborations are always with people who are experienced in doing projects abroad. So I cannot, I'm not a shop owner or something and have to deal with the normal businesses. So it's always a bit a mix. And therefore I cannot tell you this kind of, and I don't want to repeat these cliches which are here. That's Swiss against Swiss cleanness, against other issues from other countries. So I think it's always the person you meet, and there I made great experiences in Hungary, and of course I also made not so good ones, just like normal, I guess.
And I think in our region we really like foreigners, especially from West, and we are open, and yes, especially in Poland, we just like them.
I have to tell that sometimes with our gallery I also use it a bit. So how you are telling that somehow there is a more and a bigger openness if somebody is coming with an initiative which is told you in English, you know, or which it sounds like somehow more like big, or I don't know what the reason it is, but there is really this effect, I think.
The chimera itself, usually the name itself and the definitions, lots of people asking us about that, what it means, and yeah, well, there is this basic knowledge about chimera having a lion's body, a goat head and a snake. I was actually yesterday having a tour, and I was asked the same, like a tour visiting the gallery, and also again asked about the chimera, and the recent definition of mine for the chimera is like really about to challenge our gallery as the system of a gallery, to challenge it and to somehow adapt different ways of operating a gallery, and not only in the classical way of operating it on the market, selling art. Yeah, that's like the classical thinking of a gallery. But also, this has special circumstances in Hungary with the right-wing government in power and changes in the cultural politics, that we also see ourselves in the position to somehow fulfill tasks that usually institutions do. So that means, you know, like if you are in an ecosystem in Germany, for example, in Munich, where you have all the Kunstvereine and the museums, private institutions, everybody brings a lot of art and a lot of different contexts of art in the city. At the moment in Budapest, that's a crucial thing that is pretty on the topic, and I guess the private galleries as well as other off-spaces and institutions, they have to fulfill institutional tasks. And therefore the chimera at the moment really, it even becomes more important that these three heads, we really need them to really maintain the local scene, and also to maintain the exchange. And so every head is needed, every resource.
So the chimera is a cooperation between the heads already.
Yeah. Yes.
Nice. It's very nice to have a name that can change with the time and you learning and adjusting and situations changing. But all of you have a very interesting names of organizations you either found to work for. Your one is what you translated on the rail track, na peronie?
On the platform.
On the platform.
So it's like the place when you can wait for something, you can meet people, everything is move around. So it's usually full of emotion of meet people or say goodbye. And our first scene, it was established in Culture Centrum. It's a culture train, so it was connecting with the name of this independent space. But when we moved, we take this name because we like it. It's na peronie. You can meet, you can say goodbye.
To wait for something?
Yes.
Nice. And you have also a very entertaining, actually funny name to your organization. What's the story behind that?
Yeah,
one?
there are no story behind it, you know, that's the truth. And we just came up with the name of Geekers Carrots. In 3 minutes, we just decided that Geekers is too common name. We thought that pizza is something that geeks eat in front of computers, but it's unhealthy, and we organized something for girls, should be healthy, so we thought that carrots is better. It took 3 minutes, and that's it, there's no story behind. But actually, and I don't believe in names, I believe in product and service. If product is good, and if service is good, it someone needs, people will buy it, we use it, love it, or hate it. I'm product and service oriented, not name oriented.
Names are important. If you didn't have such a good sounding, quick, easy to remember name, I mean, it would be much harder to promote your.
It's not easy name, Geek Girls Carrots, because there is as not as
hard to pronounce. Yeah.
Yes, hard to pronounce. So people just say GGC or say carrots or karotki in Polish language.
Karotki.
So actually, in my opinion, a name doesn't have such a big influence like we think it has. But the product and name, if people like it, they will find out how to name it in nicer, easier way, and it works. I think we have to focus on product and services, on people, not names.
Well, you have quite a difficult name for all the people outside of the region. How you deal with it?
You mean with Visegrad? Yes, I mean it's hard to pronounce also for some. It's Visegrad, it's Visegrad, but I think this name served the cooperation and the fund well. I mean, to be clearly linked to a concrete geographical location, which is symbolically tied to 14th century, but more so formally tied to the beginning of the cooperation in the beginning of the 90s. So it is confusing, especially given the fact there are more than one Visegrad. There is this Visegrad in Bosnia and Herzegovina, so it confuses some people. But I think it became a good label, sexy label, I think. What I like, it's not a typical Hungarian name. I mean, it is a Slavic, maybe German. I don't know where the Grad comes from, but it has a Slavic element to it, which is also very interesting for speaking of the regional cooperation. Would be harder to call it after, I don't know, give me a Hungarian town name, which is hard to pronounce for anybody. Yes. So I think that helps.
Since we're so much story-oriented, we can talk about the most wonderful, crazy, whatever you want, things happened to you thanks to working together.
When you work together with other people or other people from different countries, what is amazing that you have some idea and you believe it, and in few years you see many peoples who believe in this idea as well, and they have the energy, the time, and extra ideas to develop your idea, and this is rewarding. And that the moment when your project is bigger than you and it's not only your project, it's project of many people. I think this is something for me really amazing and awesome, and which moved me. We have really nice stories because the organizer of Giger's Carrots in Torun, it's a Polish city, Beata Romańska. She went to Dublin for a conference, and there she met a Japanese journalist, which is based in Berlin. And we invited this journalist to Poland and set up a few meetups for her. And she wrote an article about Giger's Carrots for some Japanese magazine. And at the end, we just add that if you would like to organize Giger's Carrots in Japan, just wrote Kamila, and there was my email address. And a few people wrote us about this, and so it's the reason why we started in Japan. And yeah, that's the story.
Nice.
We set up one performance with French group, and we played it in Slovakia and Košice, and then we played it in front of opera in Marseille. And it was the same performance, but the reaction from audience was so different that we realized that in our country is not so strong this theme, the topic immigration, and it's not so touch people. But when we play it in front of opera in Marseille, the reaction from audience was so strong that people start crying and they feel really touched. And I say, okay, so it's great. It's the same, but it's not the same. And the same things can say the different people, different things. So it's a cooperation.
Yeah, I just recalled that we are operating in different cities, and some of the cities are really small, and people are really happy that we are doing something for them. And sometimes we are going to big city and they ask why we are better than other organizations, why, what is extra, what they can, how they can benefit from what we are doing. And it's totally different approach. And once in these small cities, we just learned that what we are doing is really big and important for them. But from these big cities, we learn from these people that there are competition, and we have to be good at what we are doing, and we have to deliver the best of what we can do. And it's really interesting that cooperation with different places, with different cities, with different people teaches you different things.
Following the lines on what Camilla said about working in smaller towns, I remember a few times it happened. We have this logo with the 4 dots representing the capitals, and in many cases it happened a few times. I remember a Polish case, I think it was in Białystok or somewhere in the east of the country. Somebody, of course, to display the logo, to acknowledge the donor, displayed the logo, but of course they thought, this is not really, this has nothing to do with Warsaw. So they basically took the upper dot from the logo and moved it to their town, which, I really liked it. I mean, of course, it was not really following the contractual terms, but taking the original idea and adapting it to your use. And I also find in many cases that working in the regions and in the border areas, it's much more interesting and much more rewarding to work in smaller communities and the smaller towns, of course, where people are maybe not so overwhelmed with all the international cooperation that takes place in the capitals. Naturally, there are way many more expats.
They appreciate what we are doing.
First of all, they appreciate it, and secondly, there's the motivation as a result is somehow bigger. They're much more into it, and it's much more rewarding to work with them. So I always like that. Bratislava is an advantage, being a city on the border in this case.
Absolutely. Thank you for that one. Maybe I can close with an observation that I made through the last 3 episodes. Somehow, absolutely accidentally, we happen to have people exclusively from bordering regions and from minorities. We have you from a border region, we have you from the border, we have you quite from the border. Maybe it's because countries are so small, so it's not so difficult to,
That's a good point.
But I will mention that I live in Warsaw for the last 12 years, so...
Sure. We have you from Bern and you from a German minority. Last time we had somebody from Skalice. We had...
So our history is
Bratislava.
So it's the reason why we have all these stories.
We had a Hungarian who grew up in Transylvania. So it's a pleasure and amazing to see how the borders are somehow now non-existing. Maybe you can finish with a childhood story of yours with your teacher. That would be nice, I think.
Yes. So it was every time when we crossed border during my childhood, let's say. So it was very stressful situation, and everybody, the adults, was like, okay, we have to go out from car and cross the border by foot, and so it was not nice, the situation each time, and maybe it was a reason why I decided to work when I grew up on the border like a policewoman. When I say this, my teacher in the basic school, okay, because they ask, hey, what do you want to be? Okay, I would like to work on the border, and she said me, no, when you grow up, the border doesn't exist. So, and it was, oh no, what is it? It's possible. So, but it comes through. Not completely, of course, because we know that there is a region where it's really difficult to come and to cross border. But in our region, we can say that, okay, I can travel with ID card, and it's not more stressful situation.
Actually, I realized that I traveled from Warsaw to Bratislava via Berlin and Vienna, and nobody asked me for ID. I just had only my passport, and that's it. Nobody asked me for showing ID. So actually, without ID, we can travel.
But I have not passport, so I just have ID as well.
Nice.
Yeah, but actually, even they don't ask for ID. You just you can
pass.
You can
If
pass.
you checked in online, and
Exactly.
you have only carry-on. That's it.
Exactly.
Nice.
But it's also funny that to come to Slovakia, which is a border country, you have to cross 2 other countries to get to Bratislava.
It's a good point.
And it takes 8 hours, so yeah, we can be closer. We can be closer.
It's interesting how the railways go. What's the connection?
Visegrad Railway would be a good idea, maybe.
There would. I recently, somebody told me that currently to get to Krakow from Bratislava, it takes approximately the same time as it did, 60, 70 years ago. So there's a lot to invest in the infrastructure for sure. And in
Maybe a helicopter?
Flying Slovak, flying car.
But the connection between Košice and Krakow is really hard to do. It takes a lot of time, and so we can improve.
Absolutely. Thanks. Thank you for being here. Thank you for the neighborhood talk. And I hope you enjoyed it as much as I did. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for having us.
Welcome.